Hey Jeremy and everyone else. Today I'm going to talk about concussion and collegiate football quarterback that we saw here at Use Maps. It's kind of an interesting presentation. How he dealt with it was interesting and unique in my opinion. So we have the abstract. I'm not really going to go through that, as well as the SOAP note. But I do want to mention on the SOAP note that the plan for the SOAP note, it's kind of as I was thinking about it, it's kind of tough to make it plan because every question's different. So kind of making these dates isn't exactly the best thing to do, especially if you set up an athlete's expectation with, hey, I'm going to be symptom free at this date. It's just kind of lofty for us just to make sure he's recovering. So these dates are obviously could be very different depending on the concussion. So the athlete is an 18-year-old male cornerback for the United States Military Academy Preparatory School, and he has the exceptional nickname. He is nicknamed the White Mamba. He's the only white person, the only white guy in his position group out of all African American cornerbacks. So they gave him the nickname the White Mamba, and I love him. He's a tough kid. So history. Leading up to the concussion, he had a concussion earlier, and I think he said he was a quarterback in Pee Wee football and he got a concussion. But so this one occurred. It was a day in full pads, and he was going to make a tackle on someone with the ball. I think it was a fullback who had the ball. He went to dive, and the back hit him with his knee. So he had that knee hit on the top of his head. So then he had the hit, he went to the ground, and then he kind of tried to sit up, and he just was taken back for a second, looked around, he's like, oh my gosh, what is going on? He was just out of it. He then returned to the sideline, and he said that's when his symptoms really started to kick in, where he was just had a splitting headache. He finished out the rest of the practice, didn't tell any of the trainers or anybody else. So then later that day he went to dinner, and his roommate noticed he wasn't able to type anything on his phone. He said the headache was killing him, so his roommate had him go see the head athletic trainer. And at the time, since with the ease of access of the Keller Army Hospital, and just covering all our bases, we decided to admit the athlete into the emergency room due to the extreme headache, and just due to the fact that we were going home. So, and it's free for us. It doesn't really cost us any money. It takes the liability away from us. So we just decided to admit him to the emergency room. He was diagnosed with a concussion that night, and then we kind of take over the next morning. So initial symptoms, he first had, like I said, he first had that fogginess and dizziness, but then he moved and kind of like, he said he started to grow a headache and everything, but as you can see in his symptom score, he doesn't really cite he has a headache. But when I talked to him before doing this project and everything, he said he had a pretty bad headache throughout the week, but it kind of decreased throughout the week, and with activity, mental activity, cognition, that increased the headache. He also complained of neck tightness, not necessarily neck pain, but he said his neck was very tight. Felt like he had trouble twisting left to right, rotating, flexion, extension. So is SCAT scoring. So I'm going to get these blocked out his name. So we can see the initial head injury evaluation done on the 20th, I believe, if I have my dates correct. Unfortunately, I do not have the layout of exactly where his deficits are, but I do have the overview page of the first day. So as you can see, he had a 14 out of 22 symptoms. He claimed his symptom severity to be about 24 out of 132. His orientation was 4 out of 5. And once again, I wish I had his results, because I can really break down like what he was missing, and you can also see that he had a best score on tandem stance on a flat surface of 10. And then to the right of the screen we have his final neurocognitive testing, and he was asymptomatic the entire time, but he did have a best score of 5. So yeah, let's see. and this scat was given by Shane actually on the last day of his return to play protocol, and then he returned to play the next day. So here are his symptom scores 2 days after the original diagnosis. So you can see that he's got mild neck pain on there, and he's saying he has balance problems, pressure in the head, as well as just not feeling right. And we compare this to his symptom scores 3 days after the original diagnosis, and he's doing a lot better. That neck pain had a reduction, and but it does cite that he is drowsy. Okay, so now we get into the impact scoring. So as you can see, he did very well. So if I don't know if you can see it on the screen, it's kind of small, but he actually improved many of his scores compared to baseline. And he took this on the 24th, which was about 5 days after the initial concussion. And after he took this, he began his return to play protocol. Yeah, and on this day, actually, we began his return to play protocol. I'm sorry. He took this, and then he began it, and starting with just light activity. So we had him go to the track, jog 15 minutes, staying with an aerobic heart rate of around 150 beats per minute. And then he came back in, and we just asked him, how are you feeling? Do you have increasing symptoms? And he was good. So here's kind of a breakdown of Mamba's return to play protocol. You kind of see the recovery, and the light aerobic exercise was started the day of when we did the impact test, and he passed. We then go to sport-specific exercise, non-contact training drills, full contact practice, and a full return to play. So as you can see, Mamba's concussion, his time frame was pretty standard. You see most concussions, with a lot of exceptions, lasting between anywhere from 7 to 14 days, 1 or 2 weeks. And as far as it goes with the trajectory, it's kind of hard to label a trajectory on it, because the trajectory I guess it's not really necessary to label a trajectory unless treatment needs to be directed because of a certain trajectory. He got better without much addressing of a certain trajectory, if that makes sense. So the cognitive fatigue trajectory, most likely because he did have increased symptoms with concentration, as I talked to him, that's what he mentioned. Vestibular trajectory could be he did have vestibular deficits. Cervical trajectory, not so much. He just had neck tightness, but in the end, it's not necessarily important as long as the athlete gets better. We never had to really address a certain trajectory in the return to play protocol. So, in conclusion, Mamba was an athlete a cornerback who received a concussion during a play. When I forgot to mention this a few slides back, he chose not to go to the trainers originally because he said it wasn't that bad. He would go to what's called sick call in the morning, which it's a driver runs all the students who are feeling bad to the hospital to get them checked out. But it's just kind of neat how his mentality was, I'll be fine, and that's part of the mentality of not only football is to tough it out, but part of the mentality of the military definitely is be tough. Yeah. So here we have our references, and I think that should be it. Thank you so much.